I wanted to talk about the issue of the funding of the BBC. It's been an issue that has been a long time in the news by now, and it's still relevant because the BBC is still funded as it is, which I'm going to explain in a second. But Boris Johnson has been talking about it on and off for a couple of months now, and he's actually pushed off the reform of the BBC because of the new lockdowns and because of everything that's going on. And so right now it's on hold, and we'll see how it goes in the future. But the issue is over the state funding of the BBC. So how it works in the UK, everyone has to pay a license basically, and you can have an exemption from having to pay the license, but the exemptions are really unclear. The rules are kind of convoluted, so you have to pay even if you have a TV and you're watching different channels, but you're watching them live, if I understand correctly. If not, please correct me.
As I understood it, is if you have a terrestrial television.
No, I think
is that changed?
I think that might have changed because if you again, if I understand correctly, it's because it's really like very complicated. That if you're watching BBC, but you're watching it on demand and not live, then you don't have to pay the license fee.
Right.
But if you're watching like ITV or things like that or other means, right? If you or radio, then you have to pay. And so there's a thin line, and some people say that it's deliberately thin. For example. So the Defund the BBC campaign said that the BBC have made the license fee rules deliberately unclear in order to keep people coughing up. And that's kind of what it seems to be as well. The express.co.uk said that, quote, pensioners are terrified of legal threats. Basically people coming in their homes or sending them mail saying like you could be facing jail time or something like that if you don't pay. And then there's a report saying that every year tens of thousands of Brits are convicted for failing to pay their TV license fees. That's from 2017, and I imagine that's publicly available as well. And so this is kind of the situation where even if you actually shouldn't pay the fees because of the way
the Byzantine regulation makes it hard to understand.
Exactly,
and you might end up paying it just in case.
Yeah. So you're making sure that you pay it just to avoid any risk of like imprisonment, because you can actually go to prison for that. And that might have changed as well, because I've seen some news around that in this year. So it might just be fines now, but it's still significant. So you don't want to pay huge fines and that. And so there's been also criticism over, quote, immoral debt collection during lockdown. Basically, people are getting visits in their homes, which might be not safe amid coronavirus, and they are being like threatened, and they're being like forced to like give them money. And the Tory MP Tim Davie said on this count, quote, immoral campaign of persecuting and harassing the poorest in our society during the unprecedented battle with COVID-19 must stop immediately. So this is basically what some of the Tories are saying. It's been basically one of the major things that they've been focusing on, apart obviously from the big news of the day, coronavirus and things like that. But this has been something that they've had a decent track record on, apart from actually not scrapping the TV license, right?
Yeah.
So, So I've got a couple of more quotes from people who support defunding the BBC. When I say defunding the BBC, it's actually not exactly accurate, because it might be that if you scrap the mandatory license fee, people are still going to pay, and people will still want to subscribe to the BBC. It might end up with a similar amount of money that it has now, but it might be a little bit less, let's say, and so the BBC might be forced to make some adjustments to be more efficient.
Scale back,
to be more careful with their money, right? Because that's also been a major theme. That
one of the things that has been recently happening. I mean, they've got a new director general that's been appointed by the Conservatives, and I believe it was him. He said that the BBC essentially is vast and does not need to be as big as it is. It provides way more services than is practical, and I mean, I don't think it was him that suggested it should be a voluntary subscription, but that's been floated around as well recently.
Yeah.
Which was like treated with horror by the previous Director General, because we know what would happen.
Yeah.
But sorry, Karen.
But I mean, we say we know what will happen, but it's not like it's likely because of the way that the BBC is run.
Yeah.
But it's not inevitable, right? It's not something that has to happen. It's something just that is likely to happen if the BBC continues on its course. Right?
It depends if they can purge the wokeness from it, because I mean, if they're going to
that's part of it, definitely.
If they're going to continue with the attitude and the sort of the general direction in which the BBC was going in, they're going to end up like Vice News, like laying off loads of people.
Yeah, fair enough. I think. I think one of the big problems with the BBC as well was that some of its presenters and people that work there, they actually receive loads of money,
hugely overpaid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so this is, for example, something that could be improved. And I mean, I don't mean to judge. If someone deserves that money, like good for them. But at the same time, right now it's state funded, so it's not like there's checks on. Yeah. Where the money goes, right?
And the argument, the argument from the BBC there is they have to be competitive with the private markets, so they have to offer really high salaries. And to be honest with you, I don't disagree. But what I disagree with is that I have to be forced to pay for a service that is offering these really high salaries.
If their argument is that they need to be competitive, I mean, they should also compete, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So if less money goes to the BBC. If it's made non-mandatory, then it might be actually like forced to trim down on these high salaries and on these like wasteful things, right? And it might be perfectly good, and it might continue the way it is now, but no one's going to care because it's private, right?
Yeah.
And so the Brexit Party chairman Richard Tice, he said about this, quote, "It's about the overall concept of forcing people in today's world to pay a fixed amount for a series of services that frankly many people no longer want. It just feels in today's world, when there's so much competition, you can get effectively almost all of what the BBC offers from other people. That's how competition works." And he's exactly right. I mean, you have so many news channels, you have networks, and you have
many options.
Yeah. You can watch Lotus, and so you have many other options, and so that there is no good argument, in my opinion, why just like one of these should have an exception.
Yeah.
And
should have a privileged status.
Exactly. It's basically a privilege, and so the frequent defenses, the common defenses of why it should stay the way it is, it's that I think two are the most prominent. The first one is that it offers unbiased journalism, that is important because all the other commercial stations, commercial networks, are basically have their interest affected or dictated or by their owners. And
do we stand by that charge of unbiased journalism with the BBC?
No, that's actually what I wanted to address.
Right. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
No, that's okay. I've got good quotes here.
Okay.
The journalist Toby Young, for The Spectator, said, quote, "The BBC in particular seems to have become a propaganda arm of the state. Normal journalistic standards have been abandoned, and it just regurgitates the views of the public authorities, transmit nightly death porn to terrify people into compliance, and regularly warns its viewers and listeners about the fake news circulating on social media. Often, something condemned as misinformation one week, for example, that face masks protect against infection, becomes government policy next. And the BBC's phalanx of reporters all swivel by 180 degrees like a well-drilled marching band," unquote.
Oof.
So this is what some people think of the unbiased journalism that the BBC produces.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the receiving end of their unbiased journalism, and I didn't feel it was particularly neutral or objective. But this is the thing: the BBC, everyone's interest is essentially laid at their pay packet, and theirs comes from the state. So that's what they defend.
Yeah, and I think you'll be able to recall a lot of kind of problems or a lot of cases where it was a serious issue how the BBC covered certain events, right? So you made some videos about that in the past, basically showing that it's very far from unbiased journalism. Yeah, and so on the screen now is the BBC's budget. I was actually surprised to find out that it's surprisingly stable. It's not going up too much, but it's still huge amounts of money. So as you can see, it's
$5 billion a year.
4 billion.
4 billion.
Yeah. It's I don't know if everyone can see it properly.
Right.
Yeah,
license fee income is 3.5 billion, and then 1.5 billion from other income. Yeah.
And the other income is divided into like advertising. Advertising, and then some grants from other people. But
for anyone who doesn't know, when you're abroad and you go to the BBC website, you get adverts. So.
Yep. Yeah, and so basically 5 billion a year if you count both the sources, and so that's a huge amount of money for like one network.
Well, that was the complaint though, because there are so many different services that the BBC has, and some of them are quite niche and not very well viewed or very well regarded. And the idea of taking a bit of an axe to the BBC and chopping it down a bit, at least pruning back the branches, is probably a very good idea.
Yeah, exactly. So the other defense of the BBC that I think is important and frequently cited is that it's important for the public. It's a public service. It's something that is in the interest of everyone, basically, so that they can rely on something in case something happens, right? So I thought I'd check some polls or opinions of people that people have of the BBC, right? Yeah. And so the first thing, it's not the thing on the screen now, but it's a YouGov poll, which has been that's not on there, John.
Right. Okay.
It's a YouGov poll that found that 35% are willing to pay more than what they're paying now to ensure that the BBC is able to provide the services that it provides now, and 56% are willing to pay less or nothing. And so like there's a huge disparity between those groups, and if only 35% of the people actually have enough faith in the BBC to continue what they're doing and that it's good, then that doesn't speak highly. It doesn't say much about the argument.
No, it doesn't. And I find it very interesting how it's always roughly this kind of third number, because I think that this is the sort of percentage of the country that is heavily Remain, Lib Dem or Labour voting,
Fair enough.
have very strong opinions on Brexit, and I think they're the people who think that the BBC are doing a very good job.
Yeah, and it's also there's also going to be quite a significant overlap between those groups of people and people who think that state ownership of things is a good idea.
Yep.
And so they often have this kind of romantic view of state owned businesses, basically. Yep. And so if the BBC is state owned, it's automatically good, or it's it's automatically better than if it was privately owned.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be a factor for some people as well.
Yep.
Right. So the next poll that I have here is a poll by Savanta Comres. That's the company that does the polling, and it's from October. And
it's a great headline.
Yeah. So that's basically the
for anyone listening, the headline is BBC News: humiliating poll shows majority of Brits demand licence fee reform. Humiliated BBC. Oof.
I don't like that. That's a bit sensational, but
of course
it's not too far from the truth, because you've got basically 4 takeaways from it.
Yeah.
3 of them I think are in this article, but the 4th isn't. And those are that a third of the people are happy with how the BBC is being run. 34% think that the money that BBC get is being spent unreasonably, and so that might mean several things. Like that might mean something else
could be any number of reasons.
Yeah. And then you have 43% that think that BBC no longer reflects British values. And that's kind of interesting, because that touches on what we were talking about earlier about unbiased journalism, right?
Yeah.
And a big thing cited in relation to this figure and this kind of statement was Brexit, was BBC's coverage of Brexit,
Right.
and complains that the BBC was very pro Remain,
Yep.
and that it wasn't being fair at all.
No,
and
it
so
wasn't.
a lot of people got really bitter about this
Yeah.
because they thought they were not being represented by the BBC, even though they should have.
And
because-
I just want to say my
Yep.
opinion is that is a totally justified position to have. I'm one of those people. Like because I mean the fact that they say that it's not representing British values is important, because it goes to show you that it's not really for a lot of people about any one particular policy, any one particular thing, but it's about a kind of impression that they come away with on a moral level, a question of moral values. And it is, I mean, if you go back like 20 or 30 years, the BBC did represent a kind of very mainstream, central political moral compass. And now I do think that that's just shifted far to the left. I mean, you can see it with all of the sort of woke coverage and woke media that they produce.
But
there's definitely a strain of that.